Your grandmother knew something you don't. She fed 8 people on what you spend on coffee.
You know, child, we didn't waste a crumb back then. Some nights, all we had was milk.
$68 barely buys groceries today, but Betty Crocker's 1950s formulas fed families for $12 weekly.
So the millions of less fortunate Americans faced a grim and uncertain future.
Not surviving, thriving. Tuna casserole, pineapple upside-down cake, meals that cost pennies but tasted like love. Comment your family's recipe and state, "I'm mapping America's forgotten food wisdom." While inflation crushes your budget, these 30 recipes laugh at rising prices. Same techniques, same results, different era. Your grandma wasn't lucky, she was smart. Stop overspending. Start cooking like 1950. Recipe 1 begins now. Pay attention. Ground beef became the workhorse protein of 1950s American kitchens, and Hamburger stroganoff exemplified how Betty Crocker transformed humble ingredients into something that felt special. Traditional beef stroganoff called for expensive cuts of beef tenderloin, but Betty Crocker's version used ground beef, making it accessible to families on tight budgets. The recipe combined 1 pound of ground beef with onions, mushrooms, and a sauce made from condensed cream of mushroom soup, sour cream, and a touch of Worcestershire sauce. Served over egg noodles, this dish delivered rich, satisfying flavors that made families feel like they were eating restaurant-quality food. The genius lay in the sauce. The combination of canned soup and sour cream created a creamy, luxurious texture that disguised the economy of the main ingredient. Mothers could prepare this meal in under 30 minutes, which was crucial for women managing households without modern conveniences. The ingredients cost roughly $2 for a family of 4, making it affordable even for families living on modest incomes. Children loved it because the mild flavors weren't challenging, and fathers appreciated the heartiness that came from a meat-based dish. This recipe also demonstrated Betty Crocker's understanding of American tastes. While the name stroganoff gave the dish an exotic flair, the flavors were thoroughly American, mild, creamy, and comforting. It represented the 1950s perfectly, a desire to appear sophisticated while remaining firmly rooted in accessible, familiar flavors. If one recipe defined 1950s American cooking, it was the tuna noodle casserole. This dish became so ubiquitous that it appeared on dinner tables from Maine to California, from wealthy suburbs to working-class neighborhoods. Betty Crocker's version became the standard that other recipes tried to match. The foundation consisted of egg noodles, canned tuna, frozen peas, and condensed cream of mushroom soup, all bound together and topped with crushed potato chips or breadcrumbs. The entire casserole could be assembled in one dish, baked in the oven, and served directly to the table. This simplicity made it perfect for busy mothers who were managing multiple children, household chores, and often part-time work. The economics were remarkable. A can of tuna cost about 30 cents. Egg noodles were perhaps 20 cents, a can of soup was 15 cents, and frozen peas added another 20 cents. For less than $1, a mother could feed her entire family a hot, nutritious meal. The protein from the tuna, carbohydrates from the noodles, and vegetables from the peas created a balanced meal that met nutritional standards of the era. But beyond economics, this casserole represented something deeper about 1950s food culture. It was democratic. Everyone ate the same thing, served from the same dish. It was efficient. One pot meant less cleanup, and it was reliable. The recipe worked every time, which mattered enormously to women whose self-worth was often tied to their success in the kitchen. The crispy topping provided textural contrast to the creamy interior, and children loved the mild, familiar flavors. Fathers appreciated that it was filling and substantial. The casserole could be prepared in advance and reheated, making it perfect for church potlucks, school functions, and family gatherings. It became more than a recipe. It became a symbol of American home cooking. Known affectionately as SOS by veterans who had eaten it in military mess halls, chipped beef on toast was Betty Crocker's way of bringing a military staple into civilian kitchens. The recipe used dried beef, which was inexpensive and shelf-stable, making it perfect for families watching their budgets. The preparation was straightforward. Dried beef was rinsed to remove excess salt, then torn into small pieces. A white sauce was made from butter, flour, and milk, and the beef was stirred into this creamy base. The mixture was served over toasted bread, creating a hot, satisfying breakfast or dinner that cost pennies per serving. This dish represented the lingering influence of World War II on American cooking. Many fathers had served in the military and were familiar with institutional cooking. Bringing these flavors home created a sense of continuity and comfort. The recipe also demonstrated how Betty Crocker adapted military efficiency for domestic use. Quick preparation, minimal ingredients, maximum satisfaction. The economics were compelling. For less than 50 cents, a mother could serve breakfast to her entire family, leaving more money in the budget for other necessities. But it remained popular because it was filling, warm, and could be prepared quickly on busy mornings when fathers needed to get to work and children needed to get to school. The whimsical name made this recipe particularly appealing to children, and Betty Crocker understood the importance of making mealtime fun. Porcupine meatballs combined ground beef with uncooked rice, creating small meatballs that were simmered in tomato sauce. As the rice cooked, it expanded and poked out from the meatballs, creating the appearance of porcupine quills. This recipe showcased Betty Crocker's genius for stretching meat. By incorporating rice directly into the meatballs, she extended 1 pound of ground beef to feed 6 people instead of 4. The rice absorbed flavors from the meat and sauce while adding bulk and texture. The result was economical without feeling like a sacrifice. The preparation was simple enough for older children to help. Mothers could teach their daughters how to mix the meat and rice, roll the meatballs, and arrange them in the pan. This hands-on involvement created opportunities for passing down cooking skills and spending quality time together in the kitchen. The tomato sauce could be made from canned tomato soup or tomato sauce, both inexpensive pantry staples. The entire dish could be prepared in one skillet, making cleanup easy and freeing mothers to attend to other household tasks. Leftovers reheated well, making it practical for families where the father worked different shifts or came home at varying times. Canned salmon provided an affordable alternative to fresh fish, and Betty Crocker's salmon patties became a Friday staple in many households. The recipe combined canned salmon with breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasonings, formed into patties and pan-fried until golden brown. A can of salmon cost about 50 cents, and combined with breadcrumbs and eggs, it could create 6 to 8 patties. This made it one of the most economical protein options available to families. The preparation required minimal skill. Children could help mix the ingredients, and the patties cooked quickly in a skillet with just a small amount of oil. The result was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside, with a mild fish flavor that even children who claimed to dislike fish would often eat. Betty Crocker's recipe included clever tips for enhancing flavor without adding cost. A squeeze of lemon juice brightened the taste. Finely diced onions provided texture and flavor. These small touches elevated the dish from merely economical to genuinely delicious. The combination of protein from the salmon, carbohydrates from the side dish, and vegetables from a simple salad or canned green beans provided balanced nutrition at minimal cost. Before boxed macaroni and cheese dominated American kitchens, Betty Crocker taught families how to make it from scratch, using simple ingredients. This recipe demonstrated that homemade versions could be just as quick and far more satisfying than packaged alternatives. The foundation was straightforward. Cooked elbow macaroni combined with a cheese sauce made from butter, flour, milk, and shredded cheddar cheese. The mixture was poured into a casserole dish, topped with breadcrumbs, and baked until golden and bubbly. The result was creamy, cheesy comfort food that cost less than $1 to make. This recipe showcased Betty Crocker's commitment to teaching cooking fundamentals by making the cheese sauce from scratch. Mothers learned the basic technique of creating a roux, cooking flour in butter, and then gradually adding milk to create a smooth sauce. This skill could be applied to countless other recipes, making women more confident and capable in the kitchen. Children universally loved macaroni and cheese, making it a reliable option when mothers needed to ensure their kids would actually eat dinner. The mild, creamy flavors appealed to young palates, and the familiar pasta shape was comforting and easy to eat. Fathers appreciated that it was filling and could be served as a main dish or a side dish alongside meat. The recipe was infinitely adaptable. Some families added diced ham or hot dogs to make it more substantial. Others mixed in frozen peas or canned tomatoes to add vegetables. The basic technique remained the same, but families could customize it based on what they had in their pantry or what they could afford that week. This recipe gave families a taste of restaurant elegance at home kitchen prices. Pimentos, and a creamy white sauce served over biscuits, toast, or rice. The name sounded fancy, but the ingredients were remarkably affordable. Betty Crocker's version often used leftover chicken from a Sunday roast, demonstrating her commitment to eliminating food waste. Every part of the chicken was used: the meat for this recipe, the bones for stock, the fat for cooking. This resourcefulness was essential for families living on tight budgets. The white sauce was made using the same technique as macaroni and cheese, a roux of butter and flour thinned with milk or chicken stock. The addition of mushrooms and pimentos provided color, texture, and flavor without significantly increasing the cost. A jar of pimentos cost about 25 cents and could be used across multiple meals. This dish was popular for ladies' luncheons and church gatherings because it felt special and sophisticated. Mothers could serve it to guests without embarrassment, even though the ingredients were economical. The presentation mattered. Serving it in a nice dish over fluffy biscuits made it look and feel like restaurant food. The recipe also demonstrated how Betty Crocker helped women navigate social expectations. In the 1950s, a woman's worth was often judged by her ability to entertain and serve attractive meals. Recipes like chicken a la king allowed women to meet these expectations without breaking their family budgets. This hearty casserole combined ground beef, egg noodles, tomato sauce, and cottage cheese in layers that created a satisfying, filling meal. The recipe showed Betty Crocker's understanding that families needed dishes that could feed many people without requiring expensive ingredients. The layering technique was borrowed from lasagna, but Betty Crocker simplified it for American kitchens. Instead of making pasta from scratch or using hard-to-find lasagna noodles, she used readily available egg noodles. Instead of ricotta cheese, which was expensive and unfamiliar to many Americans, she used cottage cheese, which was cheap and widely available. The result was a dish that looked impressive when cut and served, but required minimal skill to prepare. Mothers could assemble it in the morning, refrigerate it, and then bake it just before dinner. This advanced preparation was crucial for women managing busy households with multiple children and numerous responsibilities. The economics were favorable. 1 pound of ground beef, a box of noodles, a container of cottage cheese, and a can of tomato sauce totaled about $2. This fed a family of 6 with leftovers for lunch the next day. The protein from the beef and cottage cheese, carbohydrates from the noodles, and vegetables from the tomato sauce created a nutritionally balanced meal. Children enjoyed the mild flavors and the fun of eating something that had distinct layers. Fathers appreciated the heartiness and the presence of meat. Mothers valued the simplicity of preparation and the fact that it required only one dish for baking and serving. This recipe transformed leftover chicken into a completely new meal, demonstrating Betty Crocker's commitment to eliminating waste and stretching family food budgets. Diced chicken was combined with a white sauce, poured over split biscuits, and served hot. The white sauce could be enhanced with vegetables like peas or carrots, adding nutrition and color without significantly increasing cost. A can of mixed vegetables cost about 15 cents and could stretch the chicken even further. The key was the sauce, rich, creamy, and satisfying. It made even small amounts of chicken feel abundant. Biscuits could be made from scratch using Betty Crocker's basic biscuit recipe, or families could use canned biscuits for even greater convenience. Either way, the combination of tender biscuits and creamy chicken created comfort food that satisfied both children and adults. This recipe was particularly popular on Sundays after church. Mothers could use leftover chicken from Saturday night's dinner, make biscuits while the family was at church, and have a hot meal ready shortly after arriving home. The timing worked perfectly for families with strict Sunday routines. The dish also appeared frequently at potluck dinners and church suppers. It could be kept warm in a chafing dish, served buffet style, and appealed to people of all ages. The mild flavors meant that even picky eaters would usually accept it, making it a safe choice for feeding crowds. This one-pot meal combined rice, ground beef, tomatoes, and peppers into a flavorful dish that felt exotic while remaining firmly within American taste preferences. Betty Crocker's version of Spanish rice became a weeknight staple because it was quick, economical, and required only one pan. The recipe started with browning ground beef and onions in a large skillet. Uncooked rice was added and toasted briefly. Then canned tomatoes, water, and seasonings were stirred in. The mixture simmered until the rice was tender and had absorbed all the liquid. The result was a complete meal in one dish. The economics were compelling. 1 pound of ground beef, a cup of rice, a can of tomatoes, and a bell pepper totaled about $1.50. This fed a family of 6, making it one of the most affordable meals in Betty Crocker's repertoire. The rice absorbed the flavors of the meat and tomatoes, creating a satisfying dish that felt much more substantial than its simple ingredients suggested. Children enjoyed the mild spiciness and the fun of eating something called Spanish rice. This casserole combined thinly sliced potatoes with diced ham in a creamy sauce, creating a dish that was both economical and satisfying. Betty Crocker designed it to use leftover ham from Sunday dinner, demonstrating her commitment to using every bit of food and eliminating waste. The potatoes were sliced thin and layered in a casserole dish with small pieces of ham. A simple white sauce made from butter, flour, and milk was poured over the layers, and the dish was baked until the potatoes were tender and the top was golden brown. The result was creamy, comforting, and filling. Potatoes were one of the most economical vegetables available in the 1950s. A 10-pound bag cost about 50 cents and could be used across multiple meals. Combined with leftover ham, which would otherwise go to waste, this dish represented the ultimate in economical cooking. Families could feed 6 people for less than $1. The dish was popular for several reasons beyond economics. It could be assembled in the morning and baked just before dinner, fitting perfectly into the schedule of busy mothers. It required no last-minute preparation or attention, freeing women to focus on other tasks. And it was universally liked. The mild flavors and creamy texture appealed to children and adults alike. Scalloped potatoes and ham also appeared frequently at potluck dinners and church suppers. The dish transported well, reheated successfully, and could be served directly from the baking dish. These practical considerations made it a favorite for community gatherings throughout the 1950s. Betty Crocker's version of chili con carne became a staple in American homes during the 1950s, offering a hearty, flavorful meal that could feed large families on minimal budgets. This dish represented the Americanization of Mexican flavors, adapted to suit mainstream tastes and ingredient availability. The recipe combined ground beef with kidney beans, tomatoes, onions, and chili powder in a large pot. The mixture simmered for an hour or more, allowing the flavors to meld and deepen. The result was a thick, satisfying stew that could be served over rice, with cornbread, or simply in bowls with crackers. The economics were remarkable. 1 pound of ground beef, 2 cans of kidney beans, a can of tomatoes, and basic seasonings cost about $1.50. This produced enough chili to feed 8 people generously, with leftovers that tasted even better the next day. The beans provided protein and fiber while stretching the meat. This simple combination became a Friday night tradition in many American households during the 1950s. Betty Crocker's recipe elevated canned baked beans by adding sliced hot dogs and baking everything together until hot and bubbly. The preparation couldn't have been simpler. Canned baked beans were poured into a casserole dish, sliced hot dogs were stirred in, and the mixture was baked until heated through. Some families added brown sugar, mustard, or ketchup to enhance the flavors. The entire dish cost less than $1 and fed a family of 4. This recipe represented the ultimate in convenience cooking. Working mothers could prepare it in minutes after coming home from work. The dish required no special skills or techniques, making it accessible to even the most inexperienced cooks. And children universally loved it. The sweet beans and familiar hot dogs were comforting and appealing. Baked beans and franks often appeared alongside coleslaw and potato chips for casual Friday night dinners. This combination freed mothers from extensive cooking at the end of a long week, while still providing a hot, satisfying meal. The informality of the meal also signaled the beginning of the weekend, creating a sense of relaxation and relief. While not universally loved, liver and onions represented Betty Crocker's commitment to nutrition and economy. Liver was one of the most affordable protein sources available, and it was packed with iron and vitamins that growing children needed. The recipe involved coating liver slices in seasoned flour and pan-frying them with sliced onions until both were tender. The onions provided sweetness that balanced the strong flavor of the liver. Served with mashed potatoes and gravy, this meal provided substantial nutrition at minimal cost. A pound of beef liver cost about 30 cents, making it one of the cheapest proteins available. Combined with onions, flour, and basic seasonings, the entire meal cost less than $1 for a family of 4. Nutritionists of the era strongly recommended liver for its health benefits, particularly for children and pregnant women. Children often resisted liver, leading to dinner table battles that became legendary in family stories. Mothers employed various strategies to make it more palatable, cooking it until very tender, smothering it in gravy, or cutting it into small pieces and mixing it with other foods. Despite these efforts, liver remained controversial. Simple yet satisfying egg salad sandwiches represented Betty Crocker's understanding that not every meal needed to be elaborate. Hard-boiled eggs, mayonnaise, and a few seasonings created a protein-rich filling that could feed families lunch for pennies. The recipe was straightforward. Hard-boiled eggs were chopped and mixed with mayonnaise, a touch of mustard, salt, and pepper. Some families added diced celery for crunch or sweet pickle relish for tang. The mixture was spread on bread for sandwiches or served on lettuce leaves for a lighter option. A dozen eggs cost about 60 cents in the 1950s, and 1 dozen could make enough egg salad for multiple meals. Combined with inexpensive bread and basic condiments, mothers could feed their families lunch for less than $1. This was particularly important for families with limited budgets who needed to stretch every penny. Egg salad sandwiches were popular for several reasons beyond economics. They could be prepared in advance and stored in the refrigerator, making them perfect for busy mothers. They required no cooking beyond boiling the eggs, which could be done the night before. And they were portable, making them ideal for school lunches, picnics, and day trips. The sandwiches also appeared frequently at ladies' luncheons and afternoon teas. Cut into triangles with the crusts removed, they looked elegant and sophisticated despite their humble ingredients. This dual nature, economical enough for everyday lunches yet presentable enough for entertaining, made them versatile and popular. This messy, delicious sandwich became an American classic during the 1950s, and Betty Crocker's recipe helped standardize what had been a regional specialty. Ground beef was cooked with onions, tomato sauce, and seasonings, then served on hamburger buns for a casual, kid-friendly meal. The recipe was forgiving and flexible. Mothers could adjust the seasonings to suit their family's preferences. Some added bell peppers or celery for extra vegetables. Others made it sweeter with brown sugar or tangier with vinegar. The basic formula remained the same, but families could customize it based on what they had in their pantry. The economics were favorable. 1 pound of ground beef, a can of tomato sauce, and hamburger buns totaled about $1.50. This fed a family of 6, making it an affordable weeknight dinner option. The preparation was quick. The entire meal could be ready in 30 minutes, perfect for busy weeknights. Children loved sloppy joes because they were fun to eat and had familiar, mild flavors. The messiness was part of the appeal, making dinner feel like a special treat rather than a formal obligation. Fathers appreciated that it was filling and contained meat, satisfying their expectations for a substantial dinner. The sandwiches were also popular at casual gatherings, school functions, and youth group events. They could be kept warm in a slow cooker and served buffet style, making them practical for feeding crowds. This versatility helped establish sloppy joes as a permanent fixture in American food culture. Similar to egg salad, but with a different protein source, tuna salad became a lunchtime staple in 1950s American homes. Betty Crocker's recipe combined canned tuna with mayonnaise, celery, and seasonings to create a versatile filling for sandwiches or a topping for lettuce salads. The preparation was simple enough for children to help. Mothers could teach their daughters how to drain the tuna, chop the celery, and mix everything together. This hands-on involvement helped pass down cooking skills and created opportunities for mother-daughter bonding in the kitchen. A can of tuna cost about 30 cents, and 1 can could make enough tuna salad for 4 sandwiches. Combined with bread and basic condiments, mothers could feed their families lunch for less than $1. This was particularly important during summer months when children were home from school and needed multiple meals throughout the day. Tuna salad was also popular because it required no cooking. On hot summer days, when mothers wanted to avoid heating up the kitchen, cold sandwiches provided a practical solution. The protein from the tuna kept children satisfied until dinner, and the mild flavors appealed to young palates. The versatility of tuna salad made it valuable for various occasions. It could be served as sandwiches for everyday lunches, as a topping for lettuce salads for ladies' luncheons, or as a filling for tomatoes or avocados for more elegant presentations. This adaptability made it a reliable recipe that mothers could use in multiple contexts. This comforting dish transformed leftover pot roast into a completely new meal, demonstrating Betty Crocker's genius for eliminating waste and stretching food budgets. Diced beef was combined with vegetables and gravy, topped with pie crust or biscuits, and baked until golden. The beauty of this recipe lay in its flexibility. Mothers could use whatever leftover meat and vegetables they had on hand. The gravy could be made from scratch or enhanced with canned soup. The topping could be pie crust, biscuits, or even mashed potatoes. This adaptability meant that no two pot pies were exactly alike, but all were satisfying and economical. The dish felt special and substantial, making it perfect for Sunday dinners or when the family had guests. The golden crust or biscuit topping looked impressive when brought to the table, even though the ingredients were simple and affordable. This psychological aspect mattered enormously. Families wanted to feel like they were eating well, not just surviving on leftovers. Children enjoyed pot pie because each bite contained multiple components: meat, vegetables, gravy, and crust, all together. The combination of textures and flavors kept the meal interesting. These golden, crispy pancakes made from canned corn, flour, and eggs became a popular side dish and occasional main course during the 1950s. Betty Crocker's recipe showed how simple ingredients could be transformed into something special through proper technique. The batter was straightforward: canned corn mixed with flour, eggs, a bit of milk, and seasonings. Spoonfuls were dropped into hot oil and fried until golden brown on both sides. The result was crispy outside, soft inside, with sweet corn flavor throughout. They could be served as a side dish with meat, or as a main course with syrup for breakfast. The economics were excellent. A can of corn cost about 15 cents. And combined with basic pantry staples, mothers could make enough fritters to feed their family for less than 50 cents. This made them particularly valuable during lean times when budgets were especially tight. Corn fritters were popular with children because they were slightly sweet and fun to eat. The crispy texture appealed to young palates, and the small size made them feel like a treat rather than a chore. Mothers could serve them with syrup to make them even more appealing to reluctant eaters. The recipe also appeared frequently at church breakfasts and community gatherings. Fritters could be kept warm in the oven and served buffet-style, making them practical for feeding crowds. The combination of affordability, ease of preparation, and universal appeal made them a reliable choice for community events. This British-inspired dish became thoroughly Americanized in Betty Crocker's hands, transforming into an economical casserole that used leftover meat and mashed potatoes. Ground beef or lamb was cooked with vegetables, topped with mashed potatoes, and baked until the top was golden and crispy. The recipe demonstrated Betty Crocker's commitment to eliminating waste. Leftover mashed potatoes from one meal became the topping for the next meal. Small amounts of leftover meat could be stretched with vegetables and gravy. Nothing went to waste, and the result was a satisfying, complete meal. The layered presentation made the dish look impressive when served. Cutting through the crispy potato topping to reveal the savory meat and vegetables underneath created visual interest and anticipation. This mattered in an era when presentation was considered an important part of a woman's domestic skills. Children enjoyed shepherd's pie because it combined familiar, comforting elements, meat, potatoes, and vegetables, in an interesting format. The crispy potato topping provided textural contrast to the soft filling. Fathers appreciated the heartiness and the presence of meat. Mothers valued the efficiency of using leftovers creatively. The dish was also practical for entertaining. It could be assembled in advance, refrigerated, and baked just before guests arrived. This advance preparation freed mothers to focus on other aspects of hosting, making dinner parties less stressful and more enjoyable. These elegant appetizers required only eggs, mayonnaise, mustard, and a few seasonings, yet they elevated any gathering. Betty Crocker's recipe showed how simple ingredients, properly prepared, could create something special. Hard-boiled eggs were halved, and the yolks were mixed with mayonnaise, mustard, salt, and pepper until smooth. The mixture was piped or spooned back into the egg white halves and garnished with paprika. The result was visually appealing and delicious, perfect for parties and potlucks. A dozen eggs cost about 60 cents and could make 24 deviled egg halves, enough to serve as appetizers for a large gathering. This made them one of the most economical party foods available. The preparation could be done entirely in advance, which was crucial for hostesses managing multiple dishes. Deviled eggs appeared at virtually every social gathering during the 1950s: church potlucks, family reunions, bridge parties, and holiday dinners. Their ubiquity reflected both their affordability and their universal appeal. Children and adults alike enjoyed them, making them a safe choice when feeding crowds with varied tastes. The recipe was also endlessly variable. Some families added sweet pickle relish for tang. Others used bacon bits for smokiness. Some made them spicy with hot sauce or cayenne pepper. These variations allowed hostesses to put their personal stamp on a classic recipe while maintaining its essential character. This simple dish represented Depression-era cooking that carried over into the 1950s. Frozen or canned peas were heated in a white sauce and served over toast for a quick, economical meal that provided vegetables and protein in one dish. The white sauce was made using the familiar technique of cooking flour in butter, then gradually adding milk while stirring. The peas were added to the sauce and heated through. The mixture was served over toast points for a meal that cost less than 50 cents for a family of 4. This recipe appeared most frequently as a light supper or lunch option. It wasn't substantial enough for dinner when fathers expected meat, but it worked perfectly for meals when mothers needed something quick and economical. The mild flavors appealed to children, and the preparation was simple enough to manage even on the busiest days. Creamed peas on toast also demonstrated the lingering influence of British cooking on American food culture. This impressive dessert became a 1950s icon, appearing at dinner parties, potlucks, and family celebrations throughout the decade. Betty Crocker's recipe used canned pineapple, maraschino cherries, and a simple yellow cake to create something that looked and tasted special. The preparation involved melting butter and brown sugar in a cast-iron skillet, arranging pineapple rings and cherries in the mixture, then pouring cake batter over the top. After baking, the cake was inverted onto a plate, revealing the beautiful caramelized fruit topping. The dramatic presentation made it perfect for entertaining. The economics were reasonable for a special occasion dessert. A can of pineapple cost about 30 cents, and combined with basic baking ingredients, the entire cake cost about $1. This was more expensive than everyday desserts like cookies or pudding, but affordable enough for regular family celebrations. The cake's visual appeal mattered enormously in the 1950s. Women's magazines featured elaborate presentations and emphasized the importance of attractive desserts for successful entertaining. Pineapple upside-down cake delivered impressive results without requiring advanced baking skills, making it accessible to home cooks of all levels. Children loved the sweet, fruity topping and the moist cake underneath. Adults appreciated the nostalgic flavors and the effort that went into creating something special. The cake became associated with celebration and hospitality, making it more than just a dessert. No collection of 1950s recipes would be complete without Meatloaf, and Betty Crocker's version became the standard against which all others were judged. Ground beef was mixed with breadcrumbs, eggs, milk, and seasonings, formed into a loaf and baked until done. The genius of this recipe lay in its ability to stretch meat. By adding breadcrumbs and other fillers, 1 pound of ground beef could feed 6 people instead of 4. The breadcrumbs absorbed moisture and fat from the meat, creating a tender, flavorful loaf that sliced beautifully for serving. The topping varied by family preference. Some used ketchup, others used tomato sauce, and still others made a sweet and sour glaze with brown sugar and vinegar. These variations allowed families to customize the recipe while maintaining its essential character. The topping also added moisture and flavor, making the meatloaf more appealing. Meatloaf was economical, with the entire dish costing about $2 for a family of 6. It was reliable. The recipe worked consistently, which mattered to women whose self-worth was tied to their cooking success, and it was versatile. This iconic dish, while technically created by Campbell's Soup Company, was popularized and adapted by Betty Crocker for home cooks. Canned green beans were combined with condensed cream of mushroom soup and topped with French-fried onions, then baked until bubbly. The simplicity was revolutionary. 3 main ingredients, green beans, soup, and onions, created a side dish that became mandatory at Thanksgiving dinners and appeared regularly at potlucks throughout the year. The preparation took minutes, and the result was creamy, crunchy, and universally appealing. The economics were excellent. A can of green beans cost about 15 cents. A can of soup was 15 cents, and French-fried onions were about 30 cents. For 60 cents, mothers could create a side dish that fed 8 people. Green bean casserole became so ubiquitous that it transcended its humble origins to become a cultural touchstone. Thanksgiving without it felt incomplete. Potlucks without it seemed inadequate. The dish represented American food culture in the 1950s, practical, economical, and embracing of convenience products. This elegant salad combined apples, celery, walnuts, and mayonnaise for a side dish that felt sophisticated despite its simple ingredients. Betty Crocker's version became popular for ladies' luncheons and holiday dinners throughout the 1950s. The preparation was straightforward. Apples were diced and tossed with lemon juice to prevent browning. Chopped celery and walnuts were added, along with enough mayonnaise to bind everything together. Some versions included raisins or grapes for additional sweetness and texture. The salad represented aspirational eating. It felt fancy and special, even though the ingredients were affordable and accessible. Apples cost about 10 cents per pound, celery was inexpensive, and while walnuts were pricier, a small amount went a long way. The entire salad cost less than $1 and served 8 people. Waldorf salad appeared frequently at church potlucks, bridge parties, and holiday gatherings. It could be prepared in advance and chilled, making it practical for hostesses managing multiple dishes. The combination of sweet, crunchy, and creamy elements appealed to varied palates, making it a safe choice for feeding crowds. The recipe also demonstrated how Betty Crocker helped women navigate social expectations. In an era when entertaining was considered an essential domestic skill, having reliable recipes for attractive, affordable dishes was crucial. Waldorf salad delivered sophistication without requiring expensive ingredients or advanced techniques. Homemade chocolate pudding represented comfort and nostalgia, and Betty Crocker's recipe showed families how to make it from scratch, using cocoa powder, sugar, milk, and cornstarch. The result was creamy, rich, and far superior to instant pudding mixes. The preparation required attention and patience. Cocoa powder, sugar, and cornstarch were whisked together, then milk was gradually added. The mixture was cooked over medium heat, stirring constantly until it thickened. After cooling, the pudding was served in individual dishes, often topped with whipped cream. The economics were favorable. A box of cocoa powder cost about 30 cents and could make multiple batches of pudding. Combined with milk, sugar, and cornstarch, mothers could create dessert for their family for less than 50 cents. This made it an affordable treat that could be served regularly without straining the budget. Children universally loved chocolate pudding, making it a reliable dessert option when mothers needed to ensure their kids would eat something sweet without complaint. The creamy texture and rich chocolate flavor provided comfort and satisfaction. Fathers appreciated having a homemade dessert, which signaled that their wives were fulfilling their domestic responsibilities properly. The recipe also taught important cooking skills. Learning to make a custard-based pudding required understanding temperature control, constant stirring, and recognizing when the mixture had thickened properly. These techniques applied to numerous other recipes, making women more confident and capable cooks. This hearty breakfast became a weekend staple in many American homes during the 1950s. Betty Crocker's recipe combined homemade biscuits with sausage gravy for a filling meal that cost pennies per serving. The biscuits were made from flour, baking powder, salt, shortening, and milk, all basic pantry staples. The dough was rolled out, cut into rounds, and baked until golden. The sausage gravy was made by browning breakfast sausage, making a roux with the fat and flour, then adding milk and cooking until thickened. The economics were remarkable. A batch of biscuits cost about 30 cents, and a pound of sausage cost about 50 cents. For less than $1, mothers could feed their entire family a substantial breakfast that would keep them satisfied until lunch. This was particularly important for families with fathers doing physical labor who needed substantial meals. The meal represented traditional American breakfast culture. It was hearty, filling, and centered around familiar flavors and textures. Children enjoyed the mild, creamy gravy and the fluffy biscuits. Fathers appreciated the presence of meat and the substantial portion sizes. Mothers valued the low cost and the satisfaction of making everything from scratch. Biscuits and gravy also appeared at church breakfasts and community gatherings. The dish could be prepared in large quantities, kept warm easily, and served buffet style. These practical considerations made it popular for feeding crowds at social events throughout the decade. This Southern-inspired dessert salad became popular nationwide during the 1950s. Betty Crocker's version combined canned fruit cocktail, coconut, marshmallows, and sour cream for a sweet, creamy dish that appeared at potlucks and holiday dinners. The preparation couldn't have been simpler. Canned fruit was drained and mixed with shredded coconut, miniature marshmallows, and sour cream. The mixture was chilled before serving, allowing the flavors to meld and the marshmallows to soften slightly. The result was sweet, creamy, and refreshing. The economics were favorable. A can of fruit cocktail cost about 30 cents, and combined with coconut, marshmallows, and sour cream, the entire dish cost about $1. This served 8 people, making it an affordable option for gatherings and celebrations. Ambrosia salad represented the 1950s embrace of convenience foods and sweet flavors. Everything came from packages and cans, requiring no cooking or advanced preparation. The sweetness appealed to American palates that had grown accustomed to sugar in both savory and sweet dishes. Children loved Ambrosia salad because it was essentially dessert disguised as salad. The marshmallows and sweet fruit made it feel like a treat. Adults appreciated the refreshing quality and the nostalgic flavors. The dish became associated with celebration and special occasions, appearing reliably at Christmas dinners, Easter lunches, and summer picnics. This final recipe exemplifies everything Betty Crocker represented in the 1950s: economy, simplicity, reliability, and comfort. Chicken pieces were baked with rice, condensed soup, and water in a single casserole dish, creating a complete meal with minimal effort. The preparation was remarkably simple. Rice was spread in the bottom of a casserole dish, chicken pieces were arranged on top, condensed cream of mushroom or cream of chicken soup was mixed with water and poured over everything, and the dish was covered and baked until the chicken was done and the rice had absorbed the liquid. The economics were excellent. A whole chicken cut into pieces cost about $1, rice was inexpensive, and a can of soup cost 15 cents. For about $1.50, mothers could feed their family of 6, a complete meal that required only one dish. This represented the ultimate in economical, efficient cooking. The dish was reliable. It worked every time, which mattered enormously to women whose success in the kitchen was considered a reflection of their worth as wives and mothers. The chicken stayed moist, the rice cooked perfectly, and the flavors melded together beautifully. This consistency built confidence and encouraged women to try other recipes. Chicken and rice casserole represented the culmination of 1950s cooking philosophy. It was economical without feeling like a sacrifice. It was simple without being boring. It was nutritious while remaining appealing to children. And it freed mothers from spending hours in the kitchen, allowing them to manage their many other responsibilities while still providing their families with hot, satisfying meals. These 30 recipes represent more than just instructions for preparing food. They tell the story of American families navigating the complex transition from wartime scarcity to post-war prosperity. They reveal the pressures women faced to feed their families well on limited budgets while maintaining appearances of middle-class success. They demonstrate the ingenuity and resourcefulness that characterized home cooking before the complete takeover of convenience foods and restaurant dining. Betty Crocker's recipes succeeded because they understood the real challenges families faced. They didn't require expensive ingredients or advanced techniques. They worked reliably, building confidence in home cooks. They could be adapted based on what families had available or could afford, and they created meals that satisfied both nutritional needs and emotional desires for comfort and familiarity. The economic efficiency of these recipes cannot be overstated. In an era when most families lived on a single income, when unexpected expenses could create genuine hardship, when saving money was essential for security and advancement, these recipes allowed families to eat well without breaking their budgets. The emphasis on convenience and efficiency reflected the reality of women's lives in the 1950s. Despite the idealized image of the happy homemaker with unlimited time and energy, most women were managing households without modern appliances, raising multiple children, and often working part-time jobs. The gap between the cultural mythology and the lived experience was enormous, and Betty Crocker's recipes bridged that gap by acknowledging what women actually needed rather than what society pretended they had. Consider the typical day of a 1950s housewife. She woke before dawn to prepare breakfast for her husband before he left for work and her children before they left for school. After they departed, she faced a mountain of tasks that would consume her entire day. Laundry was done by hand or with a wringer washer that required constant attention and physical effort. Each load needed to be fed through the wringer, hung on lines to dry, brought back inside, sprinkled with water, and ironed. A single day's laundry could take 4 to 6 hours of hard physical labor. Between laundry sessions, she cleaned the house without vacuum cleaners or modern cleaning products. Floors were swept and mopped by hand. Rugs were taken outside and beaten. Windows were washed with newspaper and vinegar. Bathrooms were scrubbed on hands and knees. Dusting, polishing, and maintaining a home to the exacting standards of the era required relentless physical effort and attention to detail. Childcare consumed whatever time remained. Multiple children needed constant supervision, help with homework, mediation of disputes, and emotional support. Babies needed feeding, diaper changes, and attention. Toddlers needed watching to prevent disasters. School-age children needed lunch preparation, after-school snacks, and help with various projects and activities. The mental and emotional labor of managing children's needs was exhausting and never-ending. Many women also worked part-time jobs to supplement family incomes. They took in sewing or laundry from neighbors. They worked as store clerks or telephone operators. They cleaned other people's homes or provided childcare for working mothers. This additional work brought in desperately needed money, but added hours to already overwhelming days. Into this reality came dinner preparation. By 4 o'clock, Exhausted women needed to create meals that would satisfy hungry families and meet social expectations for proper homemaking. They couldn't spend 2 hours making elaborate dishes from scratch. They needed recipes that worked quickly, reliably, and with minimal supervision. They needed dishes that could be prepared with one eye on the stove and the other on children doing homework at the kitchen table. Betty Crocker's emphasis on convenience wasn't about laziness or shortcuts. It was about survival. Recipes that used canned soups instead of homemade stocks saved 30 minutes. Casseroles that baked unattended in the oven freed women to help children with homework or fold laundry. One-pot meals meant less cleanup time, which meant earlier bedtimes and desperately needed rest. The efficiency of these recipes represented genuine compassion for women's circumstances. The recipes normalized the use of processed ingredients and taught families to rely on industrial food products rather than making everything from scratch. This shift had profound implications for American cooking and eating. Skills that had been passed down through generations, making stocks, preparing vegetables, baking bread, began to disappear as convenience products replaced traditional techniques. The taste of American food changed as families grew accustomed to the flavors of canned soups and packaged mixes. The connection between food and agriculture weakened as ingredients came from factories rather than farms or gardens. Yet these recipes also represent genuine creativity and problem-solving. Taking limited ingredients and creating satisfying meals required imagination and skill. Adapting recipes based on what was available demonstrated flexibility and resourcefulness. Making food stretch to feed growing families while maintaining quality and nutrition showed real expertise. The women who cooked these meals deserved recognition for their competence and dedication. The communal aspect of these recipes deserves attention as well. Many appeared regularly at church suppers, potlucks, and community gatherings. They facilitated social connection and mutual support. Sharing food created bonds between families and strengthened community ties. In an era of increasing suburban isolation, these gatherings provided essential social interaction and support networks. The recipes also reveal class dynamics and aspirations. Families wanted to feel middle class, even when their budgets were tight. Recipes that looked impressive, despite using economical ingredients, allowed families to maintain appearances and feel successful. The ability to entertain, to serve attractive meals, to participate in community social life, these were markers of middle-class status that families worked hard to achieve. Looking back from our current era of abundant food choices, expensive restaurants, and celebrity chefs, these recipes might seem quaint or outdated, but they represent real solutions to real problems that millions of families faced. They demonstrate values, thrift, resourcefulness, community, family, that shaped American culture. They created taste memories and food traditions that continue to influence what and how we eat. The enduring popularity of comfort food, the nostalgia for grandma's cooking, the continued appearance of casseroles and pot pies on restaurant menus, these phenomena trace directly back to the recipes Betty Crocker popularized in the 1950s. The food we consider authentically American, the dishes we turn to for comfort and celebration, many originated or were standardized during this era. These recipes also remind us that cooking is fundamentally about care and connection. The women who prepared these meals were expressing love for their families through the daily act of feeding them. The time and effort invested in planning menus, shopping for ingredients, preparing meals, and cleaning up afterward represented devotion and commitment. Meals themselves created opportunities for families to gather, share their days, and maintain connections. In our current era of takeout, meal kits, and restaurant dining, we've lost some of this daily ritual of care. We've gained convenience and variety, but we've sacrificed something too: the sense of connection that comes from someone preparing food specifically for you. the comfort of familiar flavors prepared in familiar ways, the rhythm of daily meals that structure family life. These 30 recipes represent a specific moment in American history, but they also represent timeless truths about food, family, and community. They show that good food doesn't require expensive ingredients or complicated techniques. They demonstrate that feeding people well is an act of love and care. They prove that shared meals create bonds and memories that last lifetimes. The value of these recipes transcends their era because they address fundamental human needs that never change. We all need nourishment. We all crave comfort. We all seek connection through shared experiences. A simple tuna casserole becomes more than dinner when it brings a family together around the table, creating space for conversation, laughter, and belonging. These recipes remind us that cooking is fundamentally an act of generosity. When someone prepares food for you, they're giving you their time, attention, and care. They're saying you matter enough to feed well. This truth remains constant whether the meal costs $12 or $68, whether it's prepared in 1950 or today. Every chopped onion, every stirred pot, every dish washed afterward represents invisible labor performed out of love. The grandmother who made tuna casserole every Tuesday wasn't just feeding bodies. She was nourishing souls. The mother who stretched one chicken across 3 meals wasn't just saving money, she was protecting her family's security and future. These daily acts of care, repeated thousands of times, built the foundation of family life and created memories that children carried into adulthood.